back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Presented by the Choctaw Casino and Resort in Durant. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com and all the crew with you here today, including the lovely sounding Josh McQuistion. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Was hesitant to even answer. I thought you had muted me and this was just a sick joke.
Oh, I did for a while. I mean, I have that power to do whatever I want.
That's a little terrifying.
Eddie's sitting comfortably in a chair that I do not masturbate in. That was just, everybody ran with, like, the theater of the radio, folks. I mean, come on.
Very uncomfortable conversation with Karen Radosevich. Did you listen to the podcast last week? It always usually is, though.
What,
just based on things that I say.
Yeah. At least she was mad at me instead of
me.
Yeah,
it's even worse now because I get it daily.
People are trying to tear us apart, Edward. I don't like it.
No.
It's like I made a couple of comments about your round table, and people are taking it like I made a shot at you.
I don't think that...
You literally did not pick a person on
No, I
the
picked
defense.
3.
Yeah.
I picked 1, and then I gave 2. No, I gave 3. I picked 1, and then I gave 2 by the ways type of thing.
Yeah. But I gave you credit for doing a lot of research on your draft
You
slots.
were naming
like general managers, man.
Oh yeah,
good stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't.
No, I didn't take it as a shot.
Bob's just the good soldier. It's really hard to come after him.
Sorry.
I mean, I thought Deshaun White was the best. I'll be honest. I thought that was the best pick of the whole.
See, I would have picked any of those guys, but I was kind of going on the basis. I guess we can get into it later, but. You gotta record a tackle or play in a game first.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but to really take it, somebody
you getting Robo dialed.
I have to be. If you call me and don't leave a message, if I don't have your number,
that's how I operate.
You're never getting a phone. You're never getting a call back.
I have started screwing with people though.
Oh,
they'll call me, ask me about the warranty for my car that is literally 10 years old. And how it's running out. I'm like, it has 200,000 miles on it. And then I'll just say like, well, my refrigerator only broke yesterday, and they'll get confused. And then I just say really bizarre stuff. And I got one guy from India right before he hung up, he goes, and then he just hung up.
He did?
Yes. I really pissed him off.
He lost his time. He had time. He could have called
I waste
someone
your time.
else,
Yeah, I don't care what your quota is. I'll waste. You robo dial me, I will waste your time. I will run you around in circles.
That has to just be one of the. I'm not gonna say it's the worst job in the world, but just the most predictable.
It's not
as far as just knowing that you're going to be treated like shit.
As far as I'm concerned, measles is not the world's problem. It's robo dialing.
I could see that.
That's the biggest plague on us as a society now.
Did I tell you guys? Oh, go ahead.
Especially now with the 405 numbers.
Oh, I know.
That's awful.
You know, if you get an unlisted a number that's not in your phone that's the same prefix as your cell phone, like that's a robodial.
Yep. Every time. And it's always from random, like Okema or Fort Gibson or I
get like Wetumpka and stuff. It's
it's never like Oklahoma City.
I get a lot of
random aspect.
Anadarko for
Anadarko, and I think I've gotten a lot of Wetumpka or Wewoka or something like that.
Get like some Walika or something.
No, it's Walika. Oh. That's exactly what it is.
That's some Class B football there. Some 8-man.
Isn't that where?
Is that all southeast?
Is that where the tornado hit in Twister? No, it was Waurika.
Yeah, that was Waurika, where Aunt Meg lived.
Was she in Waurika?
I thought so.
I think that's right.
I don't think that's right, but because Waurika's right by Duncan. I would have been a lot more fired up if it hit Waurika.
Last week I had this guy
right by my house.
I had this guy call me. I thought it was robocall, and he leaves a message, and obviously they never do. So I was like, well, okay. So I listened to it, and it's like, we're trying to collect on some money you owe us.
Yes.
Like, what? And so I'm like, I don't owe this. Like, it was some company from Pryor, I think. I'm like, I've traveled all over Oklahoma, and I don't think I've ever been to Pryor. and I sure haven't borrowed money from anyone in prior. So the second time he calls back, I'm like, I don't know what this is, but you've got the wrong person. And they're like, well, is this Josh McCuistion? And I'm like, well, yeah. Like at first I'm like, well, okay. And then they're like, well, and they start trying to ask me all this stuff. Well, I've read all the, like, okay, this is a fishing expedition. They're trying to get my information. I'm like, I'm not comfortable answering any of this, but I know it's not me you're looking for. I don't owe you money. I don't know who you are. Please stop calling. And so, and the guy's stunned. And I was like, either he was really genuine or that dude, just got, he just got caught by surprise or something. It felt weird when I hung up with him. So about an hour later, he calls me again. I'm like, son of a, but I was somewhere with Tiffany, and so I couldn't answer. I checked my voicemail. It leaves another message. Josh, hey, this is so-and-so from this company, whose name I can't remember. And he's like, really sorry. The correct Josh McCuistion actually called us. He was, the guy we were looking for. Really sorry. Sorry we interrupted your day. Blah, blah. Was super apologetic and nice. I'm like, wow, this person was actually legitimate, and I was a massive dickhole to him. So I felt kind of bad about it. But
he wasn't legitimate.
How many Josh McCuistions can there be?
I don't believe for a second that was real.
You should call him back multiple times over the next couple of weeks and ask him if he wants to buy a subscription to Soonerscoop.com. Wakita.
That's what we should do.
Wakita.
We should just hire some robo callers for Soonerscoop.com.
Yeah, get a season ticket holder list from Oklahoma. Or steal one.
Do you know how you don't get robo-dialed by us? Be a member.
Yeah, exactly. It's Wakita,
Boom.
by the way.
I mean,
Soonerscoop.com is ready to arrest you in one day if you do not get annual subscription.
Aunt Meg lived in Wakita.
Wakita.
Oh, Carey was right that it wasn't Waurika. All right.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, all towns that start with W in Oklahoma are the same. Wellston,
I think that's
Wawoka, Waurika, Wakita,
Watoka.
Watoka. Watonga.
Oh, yeah.
4 acres.
Did Watonga just have a tornado?
4 acres.
No, that was yesterday?
Yeah.
That was Cushing, wasn't it?
Oh, okay. All right. NFL draft. It is. It's over, and thank God Kyler Murray was the number 1 pick, because I think worlds would have collided. I don't know what would have happened. Everyone would have freaked out, both NFL and college and OU. But it goes about. I've said this before. That's as well as Oklahoma could have hoped. I mean, you would have been greedy to say Amani Bledsoe gets drafted. To have 8 people drafted, Rodney Anderson takes a long time for him to get drafted, but he does. By the way, I was looking at the list of people that didn't get drafted today that were early entrants, like Tyron Johnson, little Jordan Humphrey.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long-ass list of guys.
Was it the Wesley kid from Tech?
Yes.
Who's a really good receiver, I thought. When I say Tyron Johnson, there was Elijah Holyfield didn't get drafted
because of that 40 time.
Yeah. What was it, like a 4.65 or something?
Oh, it was a lot worse than that.
Worse
I want to say
Yeah.
it was 4.79 or something.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was not strong.
But, I mean, those are all guys that left. Of course, Amani Bledsoe didn't leave early, but he was forced to leave early by the NCAA, and he didn't get drafted. But after looking at that list and seeing those guys, I think Rodney Anderson's probably fortunate that he did get drafted. And he actually went to a pretty good place.
It was weird with the Bengals because they drafted a running back, I think, in the 4th round, too. And so a lot of people were wondering what's the direction they're
tells
going
you they're
with
giving
it.
up on Giovanni Bernard.
Gio, yeah, that's what when I started to read, oh, okay, they're getting rid of him, and then they'll see how this all works out. But they have 8 players in the first 6 rounds, because you don't even have to go to the 7th round. That's kind of nice to say. We had 8 in the first 6, 4 offensive linemen in the first 4. Yeah, that worked out about as well as you could possibly have hoped.
Let me ask, is Bobby Evans, was that the biggest surprise to everybody?
That he went so early?
Yeah.
Bobby and Seibert, yeah.
Yeah, I was decently surprised that Cleveland decided to take Seibert with the 5th pick. I mean, in the 5th round, just for the fact that they already have a kicker. That means that they think he's going to come in and win the job, right?
Well, they fired their guy last year.
They have Caleb Joseph still under
Yeah.
contract.
But the shocker to me was that the Browns, John Dorsey came to OU's last 2 regular season games, well, the West Virginia game in person, then the Big 12 championship game in person, and they end up drafting a kicker. He wasn't there looking at Austin Seibert. He was probably there looking at Ben Powers and Drew, although their offensive line is fine. I mean, that's not a priority for them.
they filled their needs on the defensive side, and I guess they figured that. I mean, they literally lost games last year because of a kicker.
Yeah.
So they made a commitment. But the Bobby Evans thing was a little surprising, just for the fact that, I mean, from everything I read, they feel like he could be the next left tackle for him after the Andrew Whitworth retires.
Which I know Josh feels like he needs to be playing right tackle in the league. Right, Josh?
Well, it's I do, and it's not that he has all the physical tools that make sense at left tackle, but it's like, Carey, I remember you and I talking with Kevin Wilson about this years ago, with a guy like Trent Williams and some of that. Like, everybody just assumes, good athlete, you just slide him over to left and it works. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work like that. I mean, there's some guys, because it is the same thing, but everything's opposite. I mean, it's just learning how it's. For people that throw right-handed, all of a sudden you got to learn to throw left-handed, and do it as efficiently as you did from the other side, and you have to do it in the course of a few months. That's really, really hard to do. So I think there is this assumption that it should work, and maybe it will. Maybe another year and he's got some more time. Maybe one season wasn't enough. I could buy all those cases, but to me, I mean, as a right tackle, he was one of the best right tackles in college football as a redshirt sophomore. As a redshirt junior, that was easily his worst season at Oklahoma. Wasn't himself.
When he was a right tackle, he would literally destroy Ben Banigou every time they went up against each other.
Would he have been a third-round pick if he left after his redshirt sophomore?
That's always that weird thing. It's kind of like
did it actually work out for him?
Yeah, I mean, it's always that thing. It's kind of like, if you play hard to get, almost. Like, if people think that you're wanted, then sometimes they want you, even though you might not be. I don't have any experience with attracting several women at one time, so I really don't. I'm out of my depth here.
He was just so interesting because and he was a guy in that story that I did on draft day, kind of picking where I thought I had him going like the 5th round because there was no buzz. There was no talk that he was going to be a second-day guy. And for him to go above everybody but Cody, I didn't see that all, because the guy that everyone buzzed about, all the the draft guys, was Samia. And for me, Samia's 4th out of the 4, and I don't think it's all that close.
He's just so inconsistent. I mean, I think there's a ceiling there that he hasn't reached yet.
Sure.
But, I mean, he would have, and it's not so much inconsistent, he would just have plays where he just got his butt kicked.
He's a guy that could go on and be a 3-4, almost like a Chris Bush kind of career.
Yeah.
Like a 3 or 4 time Pro Bowler, could be really, really good, or he could be a guy that just can't ever consistently find the level. But if you ask me, as an NFL guy, if I'm going to spend a 3rd or 4th on a guy, and I could have Ben Powers, who I think is a 5-year starter almost anywhere he wants to play, just because of the way he plays football, I'm going to take Ben Powers. Like, I believe in him because I know every day what I'm going to get out of him.
And I'm not bashing OU and what they did, but they seem the most caught off guard from Bobby too. Like, they weren't ready to roll with his social media stuff. It took them a while to process it.
How much do you think the correlation between what the Rams do and what Oklahoma does, and all the, McVay and Riley are always kind of mentioned in similar circles? I wonder how much impact that had. Like, he's going to understand what we do. No, I mean, it's different, but like, there are similar ideals and things they're looking for. And I wonder if that was just kind of a situation where he worked really well at Oklahoma. I bet he can do what we do.
You know what I think, probably showed well for him with the Rams is that Bedenbaugh pulls his linemen so much. Like, you have to be athletic to play for Bill Bedenbaugh because you're going to be pulling your ass off whether you're a tackle, guard, whatever. You're going to be pulling. And I think Bobby Evans, as much as he was probably on tape running and blocking people, like, they probably thought, well, that's what we like right there. Like, because if you're just watching athletic ability, he's the most fluid out of all those guys, even Cody Ford.
Yeah, because that's what they want to do. I mean, they want to get guys out onto defenders. I mean, they're not a catch kind of situation. They want to get guys out in space and move them.
And they're doing a lot of jet sweeps and misdirection stuff.
Exactly.
Sometimes too much when they play the Patriots.
you think about throwing something out in the flats, and then you've got Bobby Evans, who is one of the few offensive linemen that has shown on tape the kind of athleticism to get out there and get in front of it. That makes a lot of sense.
I think
we'll see.
The one thing we really learned about the draft, too, was that a lot of teams are not sold on Cody Ford as a starting left tackle. That
Right.
has to be, to me, why he fell behind some of the names he fell behind. Josh, would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think it was pretty clear that they just didn't, the NFL in general didn't love this offensive line class. And I think we all kind of knew that because there was if there's a guy that's close, he's going to go top 10. I mean, they're just so hard to find perimeter offensive linemen. So I think, and I don't necessarily disagree. I think Cody Ford can be a really good NFL right tackle, or, a left too. I realize those are becoming a little bit more ambiguous. But as a guard, I think he could be a superstar. Could be one of those guys that 10 years from now people are still talking about as Cody Ford leading the way for, whoever the hell it is in Buffalo at that point. So
kind of like a Larry Allen type or something like that.
Yeah, I think he could be one of those guards that people actually know. You know what I mean? Like offensive linemen, there's always 3 or 4 that for whatever reason everybody tends to kind of remember and know and think about, and I think he could be one of those guys.
The Bills say where they want to play him. I never followed up in terms of their press conference when they
I didn't see
him.
it. I didn't really see if they declared anything. I think the one thing, and I know you love watching, the offensive line drills, the combine, Josh. And I remember sitting there watching those drills when Cody Ford was going through his drop steps and his kick steps. Like, he looked so much more polished than most of the guys that he was at that combine with. And I watched that and I was like, wow, he's actually, in my eyes, he looks like a legitimate NFL tackle now.
There's just no question when you watch OU's guys go through that stuff. You just see they don't ever look in a hurry. They're never overextended because there's so many of these guys that are either not used to playing in space or they're not used to doing something, running a pass drill 40 times or whatever it is. Oklahoma's guys, you think about it. I know we talk about this during the season all the time. There's always this thought that Oklahoma guys only do pass protection. But there's few offenses in the country that can better prepare an offensive lineman for what the NFL is like, because you're going to do it all. You're going to get, like we talked about just a second ago, you're going to get out on jet sweeps. You're going to get out in front of misdirection stuff. You're going to run some power. There's nothing that Lincoln Riley is afraid to call. And so the offensive line has to be really prepared for all of it. And Cody Ford, he's not the lightest of foot. But he has enough size, kind of like Orlando. Not to the same magnitude, but he's so damn big that if he's reasonably in the direction he needs to be in, okay, good luck going through him. He doesn't have to beat you to the corner. He's just so long that if he gets a hand on you, he's going to run you 3 feet by the quarterback.
Well, it's crazy, Eddie, like with him, there was such a difference between Cody Ford at 340 and Cody Ford at 330.
Yeah, it really wasn't that big of a difference, but you could tell that there was a difference.
Yeah.
Just the way that he carried himself, the way he talked
Just
about
moved
himself,
around,
basically.
yeah.
I don't know, though. It's going to be... I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah.
I guess he's not going to exactly a program that...
He's going to the one that he wanted to go to, which is
very strange
so
that he
weird.
wanted to go to Buffalo.
He said Buffalo.
I don't know. It should be. I think everybody. I don't think anybody that got drafted necessarily got drafted to a bad situation.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and give Eddie the credit on Brown.
What was
that you called it Marquise would go before Cody.
And you said that he might be the first receiver taken in the entire draft.
It just felt like there was a lot of buzz about a guy that was literally coming off of a surgery and it hadn't even worked out for teams. It's like what they saw was enough almost.
Who was second? The N'Keal Henry guy from Arizona State?
And he went in the last pick to the Patriots,
Mm-hmm.
which I think he's going to be really good.
I thought it was really cool that the first pick or the last pick of the first round and the second pick or the first pick of the second round were high school teammates. I thought that was kind of awesome. But him and the Bryce Murphy kid from Washington.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
They both played at Saguaro there that we all know because of Jacoby Covington and Keely Ringo and those guys.
You know, the only thing that really disappointed me about that is that Greg Little went before Cody Ford. Greg Little, like, just the tape they were watching or they were showing, like, of his highlights at Ole Miss, you're just like, my God, how lazy is that guy?
Greg Little is the same thing we talked about with Drew Samia, just on a bigger level. The hills and valleys are just massive. He'll have a play where you're like, that's a top 10 dude, and then he'll have a whole quarter where you're like, I don't even see a draftable guy out there. So, cause I know I'd read some stuff where some teams really didn't even have him on their board. Like, he wasn't a draftable guy for them.
The one thing I do like about Drew Samia is just the fact that, and I think a couple of the Minneapolis papers kind of insinuated it was he's the perfect Mike Zimmer football player.
You can yell at him all you want.
You can yell at him, and he would maybe
can piss him
He would
off,
maybe
yeah.
kill your children to win a football game.
Yeah, if you piss him off, he will tear someone's head off.
I think he'll have a nice career in the NFL. I don't know if he's going to be a guy that's going to be a 10-year NFL vet or anything like that.
I mean, he has to be that guy that becomes a veteran that can play any position on the line.
And I think that's what he offers to a team that needs some offensive linemen. I mean, he can basically play anywhere. He's not going to play center because they drafted the kid that I think is going to start as a rookie. What was his Ben? It was like Banneker, something like that. I forgot who it was.
Where's he from?
God, I forgot. Maybe Ohio State.
Oh, Bradbury, the NC State kid.
NC State.
Oh, NC State
okay.
kid. Yeah,
Garrett Bradbury, that's his name.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, that was probably one of the better drafts. I mean, by pick wise, it was the best draft OU's had since 2005. But I still don't think that Oklahoma fans have, and maybe they're going to appreciate it more further down the road, that they had two Heisman Trophy winners that both went number one overall.
It's hard to process. I mean, it's just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I went through the entire list of the NFL draft, and there were, 5 OU players that had been taken number one overall, and then to have it back to back, I mean, unbelievable.
It just, everything that went into it, as far as the Cardinals firing their coach after 1 year, hiring Cliff Kingsbury,
who just got fired,
out of school that he had basically, I'd say, little success. I mean, they won a couple bowl games, but other than that, that's the only notable thing that Texas Tech has done.
Tech to being a 9-win team.
Yeah,
I mean,
which I guess is pretty commendable. I mean, whatever, they've been awful. Let's just say it
he
that
didn't
way.
do as well as
Defensively.
Gundy has done at Oklahoma State.
But everything came together for Kyler Murray over the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years, even going back to the Kyler Murray story actually probably starts with Pete Hughes getting fired, because if Pete Hughes comes back to Oklahoma, he probably never plays baseball at OU.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and if Murray doesn't play baseball, he obviously not going to get drafted by Oakland, and then who knows what happens.
You think Murray...
It's just nuts to me the way that everything has been perfect for Kyler Murray.
Do you think Murray would have gone at 4 or 6 if he hadn't, if all that stuff hadn't happened and Arizona had stuck with Josh Rosen and they didn't draft a quarterback?
I can't tell you what the Giants were going to do, because it's almost like Gettleman was dead set on making an imbecile move of Daniel Jones, but they might have taken him at 4. I don't know.
Can you imagine having Kyler Murray available to you and be like, no, we're good with Daniel Jones? That's the story that
it's almost as
shocked me.
ridiculous to say that as you had Dwayne Haskins available to you and you took Daniel Jones. Dwayne Haskins scored 62 points on a defense that had almost their entire defense drafted in Michigan.
Yeah.
That was the thing that was really surprising to me, is listening to all the guys talk. There was this impression that if Arizona hadn't taken Kyler at 1, he could have really slipped.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, if we're going to say that 5'10" is okay, if we're going to, and I realize not every GM is going to accept that, but even if you want to say half of them, if you're going to say that's good enough, and you're talking about a guy that's probably the most dynamic running quarterback since Michael Vick, I mean, he's a better runner than Russell Wilson is. People want to make that comparison. Russell Wilson doesn't run sub 4.4.
No, he absolutely is, yeah.
And so, like, you're talking about that, and then you add in the fact that, okay, he doesn't run quite as well as Vic, but he throws miles better at the same, time in their careers. I don't know how, if you're not a team that sees Arizona, okay, we're going to take Nick Bosa, we're going to stick with Josh Rosen. How are teams not beating down the door for that second pick? Like, San Francisco, we'll give you whatever you want because that's a guy we build our whole franchise around.
I don't know. I
don't understand
I think
that.
you at least get to, like, pass Quinnen Williams at 2, and then
I love Quinnen Williams.
The door starts getting beat down.
Yeah. I don't understand this consensus of Nick Bosa over Quinnen Williams. I'd take Quinnen Williams 8 days
read
a week.
my mind as far as where I was going to take this because I just haven't seen enough of Bosa.
It's the 1 year thing with Williams. Is the only reason people are questioning.
And maybe I haven't seen enough of Ohio State, but I just feel like Nick Bosa, he's really, really good. Don't get me wrong. He's a top 10 pick, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like Quinnen Williams is a guy that is about as sure thing of he's going to be making plays in the NFL for the next 12 years.
Well, look, and it's not like defensive ends are, a dime a dozen, but defensive tackles that have that potential are literally a dime a dozen. Or not, I mean, they're much more not a dime a dozen. I mean, they are crown jewels.
Yeah.
As
far as like Quinnen Williams is what he can do.
Yeah, he's Aaron Donald. I mean, he's the potential is there for him to be the most disruptive player on your defense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you can scheme ways to create pressure off the edge. I mean, it's not perfect, but, like, you can do some things to help that aspect. Interior pressure, you've either got dudes in there or you don't. Like, it's really hard to do that and not jeopardize everything you're doing in your defense. So, because, I mean, like I know you can go, I won't get into all the football stuff of it, but for me, Quinnen Williams is the best defensive lineman I've seen in college football since Sue in 2009, when he should have been the Heisman Trophy winner.
He just threw people.
What's crazy is I think Sue was better than Quinnen
OU
Williams.
when they went up there.
When Landry threw the five interceptions.
Yeah.
Landry's freshman.
That was
and Dominican Sue was literally eating people that day.
That was one of the most dominating performances I've ever seen. I mean, it was like at the height. Like the only thing I could even compare that to that day was when Roy Williams was just terrorizing people.
I talked to one of Stephen Good's high school coaches, and you guys, Eddie and Bob, I know you've met him. You know him, who I'm talking about. And he was talking to Stephen after that game. And, Stephen was like a 500-pound high school bench presser. I mean, this is a massive, strong individual. Now, at the time, he had back problems and, wasn't really the same guy anymore. But he was talking about how, anytime growing up or really even in the college game for the most part, when Stephen got his hands on somebody, they were in trouble. He was just so big and strong. And he was like, I'd put my hands on Sue and he'd just throw me to the side. Like I was just a little kid, and it's not like Sue bench pressed any more than there's just some dudes that have that functional strength that, I don't know where it comes from or what it is, but like he was almost superhuman especially that year. He was just a freak show.
I ran into Wes Sims over the weekend.
Oh yeah,
still just a massive human. Just like I was like, God damn, man! Like you were just huge.
The craziest thing about Wes Sims is that he absolutely loves to play golf.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And as big as he is, I just wonder,
Dude,
how the hell? What is? I mean, I've never gone to play with him.
Probably
before,
breaks a lot of clubs.
Boy, I bet he does.
Not anger, just being so big, and I'm sure he has to get them made to fit him too.
I'm betting he almost has to swing steel shafts, Eddie. Like I feel like graphite, he'd just snap head after head.
I don't know if his swing speed would be fast enough. I don't know. I really don't. All right, back to scheduled programming.
Okay, so I think the one thing, and we talked about, it was great to see Rodney Anderson picked. I think after the last couple of days, Lincoln Riley probably was rooting his ass off for Amani Bledsoe to get drafted. Just someone on defense. Just Please let one person on defense get drafted.
First time since '95. You think about how
It's a little surprising.
poor some of those teams
Yeah.
were, especially in the mid '90s.
Oh, 97, 98.
Always somebody.
There was always a Martin
It's this
Chase
one.
or a Kelly Gregg or a
Well, you think of, they had
Cedric
some good Cedric
Jones.
Jones,
Yeah.
Aubrey Beavers. You run down some of those guys.
Aubrey Beaver's one of the dumbest human beings that's ever lived.
Dude, do you remember that game he had at Texas Tech that year in Lubbock when he just went nuts? I remember watching on ESPN. It was like basically him and the Zach Thomas show. Like it was just them chasing people around.
Travian Smith was another one.
Yeah.
Very low IQ.
Yeah, I would have thought he would rank higher than Aubrey.
But he
in that
played in the
particular
league for
game.
like 10 years just as a special teams guy. It's unbelievable.
He was like the original 6'3", 230 and runs 4.4 at linebacker.
He was unbelievable. Yeah, but you always had somebody. You had a corner, a safety. You'd always. Who played for your Colts from Ada? Josh, the defensive back. Forever he played. Jason Belser, who's I'm thinking of.
I didn't know Belser was from Ada.
I think he's from Ada.
I'm not saying you're wrong. That's a little,
Maybe
obviously,
I've got
especially in this
history
job.
screwed up in my head, or maybe I thought
We're
he was from
searching.
Ada.
We're searching.
Eddie's got his laptop.
I was just looking at the draft picks over the last 20 years.
Born in
think that's
Kansas City,
outside.
Missouri. Fun fact, though, about Jason Belser, from the same high school as current OU commitment Dante Manning, Raytown South.
Raytown.
Okay, so he's a Kansas City kid.
Yeah.
I don't know why I had Ada. There's somebody on that team that was from Ada that was really good.
It wasn't all the brothers. They had 4 of them. The Rays. It wasn't one of the Rays, was it?
No.
Jason Ray would have been right about in that era. Or not Jason, Terry Ray would have been right in that era.
It could have been.
Yeah.
We're going nowhere with that one. But no, look, nobody came out of, we've said this many times, nobody came out of the spring feeling like Alex Grinch had it all figured out. He didn't come out of the spring feeling like he had it all figured out, but it's been a little interesting on the boards because there's been a lot of anger and angst since the decommitment, Drew Sanders. I think it's just kind of made people realize, oh crap, everything is not okay yet. Defensive, just hiring a new coach, and I wouldn't say any of us thought just hiring a new coach, just firing Mike Stoops and hiring a new coach wasn't automatically going to make it to where they were going to be able to get in on every 5-star in the country.
Well, in some weird way, I think that people thought that, okay, they're going to go hire these guys and they're going to come in during the spring, and it's literally just going to, they have the players, it's just going to be a different message, and now that Mike Stoops isn't there,
It'll be all
it's
turned
gonna
around
they're going to snap a couple fingers and it's going to be okay. Everybody's going to start playing better. And
that was
to
the
an
thing. That's what we
extent-
learned in the spring is that no, these are still the same players, and they're still having all the same problems they had under the former staff.
Yeah, and to an extent, I think it's going to get better. I think you're going to see. You're in some areas
Because
you will see.
they'll be playing walk-ons if they have to.
Yeah, you'll see some type of improvement, but it takes a while to get this thing turned around. They were the 90th worst team in the country in defense last year.
And we're learning just because you had a relationship with Alex Grinch with the Buckeyes, that doesn't mean it would translate to when Grinch goes to OU. And I don't want to single out Keely Ringo, but that really seems like, you know what? If Grinch was with the Buckeyes, I would be looking more. OU hasn't really shown it. I'm not that interested at this point.
I think there's a stat that Ohio State has every one of their starting cornerbacks over the last 10 years has been drafted.
That's insane.
Maybe I'm confusing that with an Alabama stat or something. But
or LSU.
There's some kind of Ohio State, every player at this position has been drafted, over the last 10 drafts.
It'd be hard to dispute that. They've had so many DBs in the last 3-4 years. But that's even Kendall Sheffield can tear his pec during the and get drafted.
He did get drafted.
You read my mind. I was about to bring him up. That guy had a very solid career at Ohio State, and he's 4th-round pick. He's not even a guy Ohio State's fans are going to remember 5 years from now. And I thought that dude was a monster in high school. So,
and I said this on the board about Drew Sanders. Look, being a linebacker at Alabama is just like being a quarterback or a wide receiver at Oklahoma. You know, if you go and you're a starter there and you're the guy, you have a real chance to be drafted, not just drafted, but drafted high and make a lot of money right out of college. So, like, just think of it that way. It's not like, oh, he's a local kid. You know, he's a Dallas kid. Dallas kids come here and do well. Not on defense, they don't.
Josh, you've kind of hinted at the board about it, but and Bob, we talked about it this morning, was just the fact that this is basically it sucks. I mean, when you lose a kid like Drew Sanders, I mean, he's a Rivals 100 kid. He's going to be probably a kid that gets drafted in the first round at some point in his football career. But it's a perception thing that Oklahoma's battling right now. As far as, I guess, is that accurate, and how do you get over that hump?
Yeah, that's the thing to me. I mean, Drew Sanders is a very, very good football player, a very talented guy. Definitely would have helped Oklahoma, whether it was on offense, defense, whatever. But to me, the bigger hit is perception. This idea that, yeah, you still don't go to Oklahoma if you want to play defense. That's not what that's. I mean, because Sanders isn't just a guy that was going to play defense at Oklahoma and he chose to play defense at Alabama. He had the choice to play offense at Oklahoma or defense at Alabama. And as soon as he started thinking defense was his future, well, I'm ready to break my 18-month commitment to Oklahoma. Like, dang. I mean, that really kind of hits right in the gut of everything that coaches have been dealing with, fans are hoping has changed. So, I mean, there's no question. To me, the perception is the biggest problem. And Oklahoma, what's funny to me about the fans is they seem to want these kids to feel differently than they do. All the fans are very much like, let's see, we'll see if this is better. I don't know. You know, there's nobody that's like, it's all fixed now. Like, we're ready to roll. This defense is going to be top 25 next year. Everybody knows it's a process, and they seem to want the players who can go anywhere in the country to feel differently about it. Like, it's understandable that Drew Sanders is not sure what that defense is going to look like next year, or that it's going to be better in 3 years' time.
Or that it's going to develop him for the NFL and
exactly.
make him a high draft pick.
If I am an offensive guy, I'm going to go play for Lincoln Riley. I think that's real easy to sort out. You look at the track record, OU's cranking out offensive draft picks. All the things that kids care about, OU offensively is doing. Defensively, if I want to be a defensive draft pick, I'm going to Alabama. I'm going to go play for Nick Saban. Like that's not you. If you take your glasses off, it's a real easy decision. Like I understand.
And it's
completely.
not like he's picking. It's not like he's picking TCU over Oklahoma. He's picking frickin' Bama over Oklahoma.
Well, I was going to say earlier, this is the exact opposite of when, you know, I think people were almost like, Josh, you're almost mad about the Jalen Reagor thing. And it was never that. I could never make sense of it. It didn't make
so
any,
weird.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're a freaking wide receiver and you want to go to TCU? What? That doesn't make any sense at all. And obviously he's going to be, you know, a good player and he's going to go to the NFL. But compare where he is right now in NFL circles and the conversations about next year's draft to CeeDee Lamb. It's not even close.
No.
There's no comparison. CeeDee Lamb is a lock first-round pick for almost anybody talking about the draft next year. I haven't seen there's been top 50 lists that don't have Jalen Reagor in it, and Jalen Reagor is an outstanding player. So it's one of those things where that didn't make any sense. This, I get it. I get I get what Drew Sanders was thinking, and he messaged me the other night. You know, we talked for not long. I mean, it's Drew. He doesn't say much.
Exactly.
But, you know, he was just like, I think this is what's best for me. You know, like, and you could tell he was very much like, I didn't, you know, this isn't the way I wanted this to go, you know, that kind of thing. But he made the decision that defense was his best future. And if you feel that way, how are you going to fault a kid for going to Alabama?
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing you can say. You just lost, and you got to deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, it hurts because you brought him in for the official visit for spring game weekend. That's supposed to seal the deal. You know that he's been looking at other schools, but you bring him for that weekend, and that's when he's supposed to lock it down, say it's 100%, and it just didn't happen.
And I can't blame OU for, I mean, they knew the best way to get him on campus was to recruit him as an offensive player. It's like you can't have 20/20 hindsight and say, oh, they should have been going after him more defensively.
Because he wasn't a defensive guy after his high school season in 2017. They hadn't even scratched the surface of him playing defense until the following year.
And here's the thing. I mean, this is the thought that I have, guys, is Alex Rich, knowing what you know, and look, OU is going to do everything they can to change this perception that's out there. But at what point, if you're Oklahoma, do you have to look at it and say, okay, we're going to have to build this through evaluations. We're going to have to build this back up. We may not get every 4 and 5 star that we go after unless they're possibly an in-state kid. But we need to make sure when we pick a 3-star kid like that, he's really going to pan out. Like, they're going to have to take more like a TCU route where it's more about evaluations than big-time recruits.
Oh, and, you look at it, Carey. I mean, Dante Manning, when OU made that offer, OU was so far and away his best offer, it wasn't even close. And now I think ESPN's got him as like the number 2 corner in the country. And I think 24/7 has him in like the top 50. Now, we've not really updated our rankings really since that happened, so we'll see what Rivals does. I don't know. But, I mean, you look at his tape, and that's a Rivals 250 guy easy, and then you see where it goes from there. So I think some people look at this class, and they're just like, oh, well, there's some 3-star guys and blah, blah, blah. Dante Manning's a 4-star and a high one.
So is Ryan Watts.
Yes, Ryan Watts is a Rivals 250 guy.
We'll be in the same boat, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're doing it in the secondary. They have to figure out how to do it in the other parts of the defense.
Yeah. To me, linebacker is still the question because there's not enough. There aren't guys that I see that I'm like, okay, that'll work. I kind of thought maybe Josh White was going to be that guy for OU, and obviously he commits to LSU, and that kind of throws things up in the air. So we'll have to see, what happens at linebacker. But somebody on the board today tried to make the comparison of Odom and Kish. It's not don't make that comparison. It's not, and that's nothing against Tim. At this point, Tim had probably made 3 or 4 offers. OU's made like 25. I mean, they've been very active. The Jalen Conyers kid, they offered. He's already been on campus. Why do I keep bringing him up? I keep wanting to put him in 2020. Forget that. But I mean, like, there is.
That whole thing started as a misguided comment as far as I think he was saying that. Was he judging that based off of the Drew Sanders decision? Like, I didn't even understand where he was coming from on that.
Doesn't have a commit yet, and he's been on the job 3 months, and there's no clear-cut favorite as to who's going to be that first guy.
Okay, Conyers is
literally nothing you can base it off of,
I think Conyers is 2020, Josh.
And here's
he is. I don't know. I've just gone crazy.
Here's what people have to understand, too. Basically, the first month was them coming in and saying, okay, well, this kid's really, he's about ready to commit to us, or he has committed. Like, do we really want that kid? Like, there's been an evaluation process they've had to go through, which the last staff, whatever Tim Kish wanted, is not what Brian Odom is looking for. So they have to clear it all out, start back over from scratch, and say, these are the types of kids that I want to be recruiting.
And we might be talking about like those Tennessee backers that we were so confident in last summer, and now we don't really hear anything about them because it doesn't feel like they're going to fit. They're still good players. They just don't fit what Odom and the Sooners are going to want to do.
Well, and that's what we're talking about. That's part of the evaluation. It's not just about who's a good player. I mean, Bryson East and Martavius French are good football players. There's no question about it. But do they fit what Oklahoma needs and wants? And I think it's been decided that they don't fit all that well. Now, if it comes down to, okay, we can have these guys who we know are really good players, or C, D, E, F option of the guy that that technically fits what we're going to do, but he's a project and that's why he's this far down our board. Okay, then you get into a conversation that changes a little bit. I mean, that's the thing. People always want this to be, if not A, then B. It doesn't work like that. I mean, everything's kind of moving scales and you kind of have to make some decisions in real time, and that's where it gets tricky. But like I said, defensive line, they've recruited pretty well the last couple of years. And I think, especially based on what it looks like they're going to do up front, they've got some kind of, twitchy guys that can get upfield and do some things. And I think that's going to fit what they have pretty well. So if this year's class maybe wasn't a huge home run on the defensive line, it's not that that's a good thing. It's probably that it just can be survived more. I think at linebacker, they really need a few hits. They need a few guys that are ready to step into that role. Because, I mean, when these guys hit campus, Kenneth Murray's going to be a senior. I mean, that's crazy to wrap your head around. But
or
it's just
he'll be
how
gone.
He might
according
get
to-
drafted next
Yeah,
year.
I
Josh.
mean, he might.
Yeah.
He might be able to go to the draft. After
First
this year.
rounder.
Those mock
Wow,
drafts.
look at you. I love the optimism, guys. This is
Not us saying he should definitely
Oh,
get
Josh,
drafted. No.
have you not seen that mock
no,
draft
no.
that has
Matt
Murray?
Miller has him going in the first round next
First
year.
round.
Wow.
It's insane.
And
Okay, let me ask you this. Okay,
Matt Miller will do OU no favors.
wouldn't Barry Odom have been the defensive coordinator when Kentrell Brothers got recruited to Missouri?
Yeah.
So that would be like an example of like guys that OU hasn't been looking at, but like that fits what Missouri wants to do defensively. Like that's a pretty good example of the back, from their own backyard. Like there was no interest in Kentrell Brothers from OU, none at all. And so Missouri loved him. He had a great career there. He got drafted in the NFL. Like that's just the kind of things that you're dealing with. Just a different style, a different type of athlete, a different type of player at the positions that they play and the way they play him.
I mean, Kentrell Brothers is going to end up having a 5-6 year NFL career. He's going to be a good football. I mean, and you're right. I mean, that's like I said, you nailed it, Carey. That's these guys that I think if you expect Oklahoma to go in year one and compete with Ohio State and Alabama and Clemson for major recruits, you're just going to end up disappointed. It's just because, I mean, if it was, if you didn't have a hat in the ring, I mean, are you going to tell an offensive guy that, okay, if you could go to OU or Texas or OU or Georgia, where are you going to go? I'd go to Oklahoma if I play offense. I mean, now at the same time, if it's the other side of the coin, I can get the argument. But so you've got to, and I know it's tough for fans because they see it from, they have an emotional investment and it's always going to improve and it's always going to be better because they want it to. But these kids are just like fans in their heart of hearts. We got to see it. They want to see something that they can buy into, and I think that's where it's tougher. And they've done a great job at DB, and now it's just about finding some right guys at linebacker and along the defensive line.
And you know what? It's still Oklahoma. They're still going to get a handful of big kids. I mean, you're still going to get a Caleb Kelly. You're still going to get a Buki in terms of a 5-star guy. Every once in a while, you're going to get those guys. But like I said earlier, you gotta evaluate. You got to hit on all your evaluations.
And Josh, you think Brian Odom is taking care of the state now? Something a little down the road, but 2022 Booker T athlete Gentry Williams, he tagged Odom in the OU offer, and I know we both don't expect him to play that position. So you think Odom starts playing a much bigger role in terms of trying to repair those relationships?
That would have been, for me, the first thing I did when Brian Odom was hired. You're in charge of the state of Oklahoma. Not only, for younger listeners, obviously we've got a lot of young pod people that don't know Brian Odom's background. Brian Odom's a high school legend in Oklahoma. I mean, coaches around the state, even if, as you as a fan don't know him, coaches around the state know who Brian Odom is. They know who that guy is.
And
He's
the
recruited
Odom
the
family,
state.
too. I mean,
yeah, and I mean, his older brother is a coach in the state. Barry, was a very good player as well. You go down that list. So there are tons of reasons to say, of all the guys on this staff, the dude that makes the sense to be in charge of Oklahoma and that is going to have an interest in Oklahoma kids getting an opportunity to play at Oklahoma, that you would think, okay, this guy might stand on a table for an Oklahoma kid. I would bet on Brian Odom. That makes a lot of sense because he was that kid that, like I said, as great a high school player as he was a fringy take for Oklahoma when they took him, and it meant a lot to him that they did. So I think this is one of those situations where you give it to him, you let him build those connections, and yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. Oklahoma, to me, should have been the first to offer Gentry Williams because he's just a no doubt kind of guy, but that's okay. I mean, no one's going to remember 2 years from now that Oklahoma State beat OU by a day. I mean, that's just that, and it may well have just been okay. And I've got a conversation set up with Gentry, and I can kind of answer these questions. But did OSU come by and evaluate him Monday, and OU did it Tuesday? Well, if that's the case, then I get it. They just wanted to see him and kind of size him up. That's fine. But we'll see what happens. But I mean, Oklahoma should work very hard to get Gentry Williams. He's going to be an outstanding prospect in a couple of years.
Speaking of other in-states, maybe some things bubbling with Brynden Walker.
Could be. I mean, me and Josh have liked him for the last couple of years, and I think initially I definitely thought tight end or H-back. Now it seems pretty clear he'd be an outside backer, and he's developed into not a project at that position, but someone who can contribute. Now, obviously, he's committed Cowboys at this moment, but when the Sooners made that offer a couple of weeks ago, and then you just start wondering, is that going to change things? Is that something that he's been looking forward to? Because he's not really a OU guy necessarily. Even going McGinnis, his dad, the background for him doesn't scream Sooners, but you get an offer from the top school from within the state. Sometimes that can definitely be a game-changing moment, and I know we'll get a chance to see him later this month as we all hit for the spring tour, and it'd be very curious to see what he looks like now compared to who we saw at this point last year.
Yeah, he is a guy that Bob's right. I mean, I liked him as a freshman and sophomore when you kind of thought, okay, H-back. And what was funny was back then the talk was all Dominic Richardson, and I remember the first time I saw Brynden, I had come over to watch Dominic, and I think it was at Metro Team Camp,
yes,
and Dominic was sitting out or something, and, I was, at that time, Bob and I didn't work together, so I was trying to make Bob look somewhere else. But you saw him, you're like, wow, that dude's impressive, and, you talk to the coach, you're like, yeah, he's going to be a freshman next year. Oh, okay. So, but as time went on, I thought as a junior, his film at linebacker was outstanding. I mean, he was an OU level offer to me. So I think a lot of people immediately like, oh, well, this is OU scrambling, blah, blah, blah. No, he's a really good football player. And from what I can gather, talking to him a little bit, and, I know you've talked to him as well, Bob, is that this is a guy that Alex Grinch, I guess, either sat down or finally had a chance to watch or whatever. But Alex Grinch is the one that contacted him, made the offer happen, like did this all. And from what I can gather, he'd had a little bit of contact leading into that. I think for a week or two, they'd kind of been, just kind of talking with him, feeling him out a little bit. And then boom, Grinch made the offer. And since then, from what I can gather, OU's been very active with him.
I think just hearing that right there, fans should know that that seems like that is a distinct difference of, evaluation or philosophy or whatever you want to call it, as far as they're trying to turn this thing around. I mean, obviously, they've been on the job for 3 months. People need to chill is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I mean, and that, Eddie, that you're not wrong.
Like, how could you not like that? They're going to get an in-state kid that lives 25 minutes from campus.
And we've watched OU for years, especially at linebacker, be reactionary to everything.
Jordan Evans.
And yeah, I mean, it was always like, well, okay, if we don't have another option, then I guess we'll go do this. And it would be Jacob Phillips. Everyone could see that Jacob Phillips was at risk. Now, I won't even pretend. I thought he was going to stick right until about the last 3 days. And then, there was stuff that I heard and it was just clear that wasn't going to happen. But until that point, I thought he was going to stick. So I understand what they're going with. But at the same time, you have to be working on a backup plan. Not just, we didn't get Jacob Phillips, so we're not going to sign anybody at linebacker, our clearly most problematic position on our roster right now. You can't operate like that. You just can't do it. And so people can say, whether it was in relationship to Drew Sanders or not, I don't know. But it kind of looks like this was let's see what happens with Drew. We offer this kid, and now, instead of this kid feeling like, well, they lost this guy and now they want me, they don't really, other schools can't, Oklahoma State can't tell him that. They can't say they only want you because they lost the other guy. No, they offered him 2 weeks ago. It doesn't even look correlated. So I think there's a lot of thought that goes into this, and guys understanding situations that they need to be prepared for everything, because these kids literally will do anything.
Well, I think something else that could be going on, this is kind of a guess, is that we all know Lincoln's just been tearing it up, recruiting on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm sure that they go through spring now, they evaluated everything, and they say, okay, well, we're thinner than we thought here. But Lincoln's got commitments to this many on the offensive side, and then when he loses an offensive guy, maybe they can say, okay, well, let's branch out a little bit. Let's go with an evaluated guy. Let's offer a guy at this position because we need guys at this position. So maybe it's not saying maybe it's not so much a direct connection to Drew Sanders as much as it is, hey, spot opened up. Let's put it to the defensive side.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like I was sitting there going through our scholarship chart on the site yesterday, and numbers continue to dwindle. I mean, they've got 66 on scholarship right now, and obviously some guys are going to enroll, but this class has started, the 2020 class when we started looked like 19 to 21. Now it's starting to look more like 24, 25. I mean, it's getting back into normal numbers because of guys like Daly and some of these other transfers they've had. And if, any other guys were to leave, I mentioned Daly, also Tyrese Lott. They've had some losses, so you get more bodies that you can fill in. And I'm sure, Grinch probably at the end of the day doesn't really mind those things because he gets to fill them with his guys rather than, well, we'll make these guys fit into what I want to do.
If they're going to get to that number, they better. we kind of talked about it before we started recording, but I mean, they're at 6 right now. If they're going to get to 24, I would think that a lot of that work's going to be done in the summer, right?
It almost always is with OU. I mean, that you look traditionally, even back, and I know people are like, oh, it's changed so much under Lincoln, and it has to some degree. I think especially last year with the red-white game when you just had that huge explosion of commitments. And, that's all good. But you look through the years. I mean, I've gone back and looked at this a bunch of times from probably 2004 forward. You would see, I would bet the number is right around 75% of each of OU's classes came in the summer. And I mean like June, July, August, and then from December and January. Like that was the boatload of their commitments. Now, and that's a way it is for a lot of schools because that's when the coaches are not, inundated with their daily team operations. So it makes sense. But at the same time, it's also when OU would clearly dig in and say, okay, we need to close these guys. We need to know where we stand with this guy, that guy. And so I think you'll see more of that. I think in June, like I said, you're right, Eddie. They're at 6 right now. If by kickoff of the season they're not at 13 or 14, I'd be kind of surprised.
The other thing that you notice kind of on social media is like, because of what Oklahoma has done with their spring game, they're on a little bit different of a calendar than like a lot of these coaches are like, hey, we're out on spring break, or we're out at spring practices, and they're really hitting that up hard, making that a big focus of their recruiting attention. And OU will do that, and they'll go out. And I mean, you're welcome to talk about kind of the scuttlebutt there, but it's not something that becomes the central focus of the recruiting period, the spring evaluations for them, because they've already had that huge weekend for the spring game.
Yeah, and that's because of when they moved the calendar. I mean, now it's January to like March. That has become the big offer period. That used to be where you could chill a little bit. Now that's when you're getting the majority of your 2020 offers, and now what we're seeing during this period from April 15th to May 31st, that's going to be a lot of your 2021s, your 2022s, and any late 2020 kid that maybe you didn't have a spot initially in the winter, but now it's opened up and you're willing to take another look at them. And we are seeing that. We're seeing that with every single class where it's like, okay, now that kid's offered. That might be one that ends up being part of this class when it's all said and done.
A perfect example of that is Noah Arinze, the defensive end that came to OU. I think, from what I had gathered, I was expecting him to pick up an offer when he made his visit. And it just didn't happen, for several reasons. It kind of felt like Oklahoma just decided, okay, let's do a little more evaluating. Let's get a better feel for, the kid, all these sort of things. And they went up and saw him. Calvin Thibodeau went and saw him. What was that, late last week, Bob? I think like Thursday, something like that. And made the offer. So, I mean, it was Monday, wasn't it? It was Monday this week. That's right. That's right. And so, this is, like I said, Oklahoma is not, especially under Alex Grinch on the defensive side of the ball, they do not care what other people think about these offers. I mean, And Arinze was a guy that now has picked up a Nebraska offer. Like, it's one of those things where I think he was kind of waiting for that first big one to come in. OU comes in, then Nebraska comes in. I guarantee, over the next few weeks, like Michigan will come in. He'll start getting other big offers. And all of a sudden, people are going to say, oh, well, that kid's really good. Well, he's the same player when OU offered him. He just has a different offer list, so you look at him differently. Oklahoma, whatever else you want to say about what's happening on the defensive side of the ball, they're making good evaluations. If you do that often enough and you know what you want your guys to be, they're going to be fine. Like, that's why I'm getting all these panic questions. Josh, should we be worried? No, just stay the course. Like, it's okay. They know what they're doing. They know who they're looking for. When I watch them and the offers they make, that makes sense. This isn't the years past where I'm like, I don't know what an outside linebacker is in this defense because every guy's different. There's the 6'5" guy over there. And then here we've got the 6 foot, 180 pound guy that can run. And they're supposed to play the same position. They're two totally different players. There is a clear idea of what they're looking for, and they're finding guys to plug into those spots.
And to me, that's a good sign, just because you think back to the Brent Venables days. I mean, like when he would be the first, big school to offer a kid, and then everybody would jump in on it. Kevin Wilson was massive about, like, I don't know, was OU Brody Eldridge's first offer ever? I mean,
he might have been.
Like, I mean, he always found these kids out in the middle of nowhere, and that were jumbo athletes, and then all of a sudden everybody would get on him. I mean, nobody had offered. I want to say nobody had offered Dimitri Flowers a position like on the offense, like they were recruiting him for something different, or
Boise
or like
State,
fullback, or just exclusively fullback, and like Boise. I remember Boise State was in on it, but like there were like. They used to be so good at coming in on these kids first, and then everybody else jumping on board, and that kind of you didn't see that as much over the last 4 or 5 years, and now you're kind of starting to see that again.
Yep, there just seems to be a clear vision, and I said earlier, especially on defense, they don't care. Lincoln Riley doesn't care what anybody else's evaluation is. Lincoln Riley can just walk into any room he wants and recruits whoever the hell he wants to on offense. Like he's just living in a different universe than they are on defense right now. And to me, we've talked about this a lot in this pod. That's what Oklahoma has to work toward. That's the goal. But defensively right now, you've got to really make sure your evals are good, because it's going to be really tough for them to win the Keely Ringos of the world. I mean, that's just, it's not likely to happen, because they don't have to recruit a 5-star. You've got to have all the stuff. We're producing NFL draft picks. We got great, we've got, the guys around you. For Keely Ringo, man, we've got a bunch of first rounders on the defensive line, so you're not going to be covering for 5 seconds. You can sell him all the things he needs against all the other programs. With Oklahoma, it's, we can be this, we're going to do that. Like, it's not written in stone that this is what it is. So that's a tougher sell sometimes, especially when you don't have any built-in advantage. So, like I said, they're being very smart. Dante Manning, like I said, is a guy, both he and Ryan Watts, those are guys that when they sign, OU fans are going to be a lot more excited about than they maybe are right now.
There's so many names that are going through my head now, just with you talking about that. I mean, I'm thinking Josh Proctor, Dax Hill, Baron Browning, Jefferson,
Jeff Okudah.
Jeff Okudah. Oh my God! I mean,
yeah, big surprise. Jeff Okudah's getting a lot of buzz for next year's draft. That dude's a freak. He's so good.
And then Josh, speaking of doing things differently, remember last year they loaded up for the spring game official visits. Then they took off rest of the spring. That's not how it's going down this year. Have you confirmed any more names heading to Norman for this weekend?
I actually have, and was working on posting it to the board while we were talking, and then I got distracted with my own, silky sounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Getting very confident.
Wow.
So, for those that haven't kept track, or, aren't on the board, A, shame, but B, we've confirmed Noah Nelson, the offensive tackle offer from Arizona, who was in, I want to say now it's May, so it would have been like April. He came in for a visit. Seth McGowan, the Rivals 100 running back from Mesquite Poteet in the Dallas area, he's going to be in this weekend. Todd talking to our guy Sam Spiegelman, who went by and saw him yesterday. He actually put in a future cast for Seth to Oklahoma. He thinks Oklahoma clearly is out in front. From some of the people I've talked to, it feels like if he wanted to jump on board, Oklahoma would take that. So, that's a kind of interesting thing to watch. And Court Williams, the linebacker offer from St. John Bosco in Los Angeles area, is another guy that will be in this weekend after taking an official to A&M last weekend. So those guys, I think Oklahoma is right there with all three of them. These are not token visits. These are not guys that OU probably is not going to get. These are all three of these guys have a very realistic chance of ending up in Oklahoma's class on signing day. So I would keep an eye on those. I've got two more names. Only one I am kind of, I guess, ready to confirm. Like I said, I was kind of working to put it up on the board, but I'll have it up before this airs.
God, you're like
wow.
It's like when Guy Fieri goes to someone's restaurant on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and they refuse to tell him what's in the ingredients, like the secret ingredient. Like, you can't have this.
I know my base, man, and my base is that board. I got to keep those people happy. They will get upset, and I will hear about it.
You got a couple hours.
I know
still.
you're not really familiar with that, Carey. I mean, you're always so revered on the board. I mean,
how am I getting attacked?
Used to that grief.
How am I getting attacked out of this? I attacked Eddie last week. You're attacking me this week.
I'm expecting two more offensive linemen. I can give that much, and one of them is Gary and Hatchett, the offensive lineman from Washington. He should be in this weekend. A guy that I think is making his fourth trip to Oklahoma.
I was going to say, is this kid
it's at least
about to move into Norman?
Yeah, he's been there a lot for a kid that's,
that
is
looks like
from Seattle.
He's Washington bound. Yeah, I mean, for someone that I feel is going to be a Husky, he keeps coming back to Norman.
Yeah, it's really hard to ignore that reality. And if Oklahoma were to land him, it would go so far to taking the burn out of losing Aki Okunbiyi to Georgia. You have that interior guy.
Josh just speaking tongues,
right? Just say Aki.
Turned into religious programming.
Aki Ogunbiyi, something like that.
I know, right?
I said it fast.
You did,
because but Carey, of course, had to be a jerk. Call me out about it.
I was just so glad I didn't have to learn how to say his name.
You and Toby as well. So,
John, are all these kids official visits for this weekend? They are.
To my knowledge, these are all official visits. I don't have any word of unofficial visitors, and that would be kind of surprising if they're going to have 5 official visitors. But to bring in any unofficial guys, you're going to be busy.
Here's why that's smart, though, is because this recruiting staff, Lincoln Riley, they're all about building on momentum. Which it was the spring game. It was first it was going back to the college football playoff. I mean, that gave them a boost in recruiting. Then the spring game, bring in all the people. Now you have the NFL draft. So why? I mean, it makes sense to me based on kind of how they operate. Like, this is a great weekend after the draft to really highlight exactly what we just did.
Absolutely, and like I said, all of these guys are very, very possible OU guys. I mean, even the guy that I haven't been able to confirm yet that I've just kind of heard word of. Those are all guys that are very likely, not very likely, are completely possible as members of this class. So, we'll have to see what that means. But like I said, it feels, and Bob, you could answer that as well. It feels like if just OU could get 1 or 2 guys to go,
right,
all of a sudden you can, okay, say it's Jacoby Covington or Major Burns. Okay, well then Roy Manning and Alex Grinch can start calling other guys. Hey guys, we've only got 2 or 3 spots left. If you want to get on board, you need to do it now. Okay, and then those guys do it. Okay, well guys, we've only got so many spots left on defense, and we're figuring out, who it's going to be. You need to get on. It creates a feeding frenzy. And then, like I said, that's when you look at it, and then, September 1st, Oklahoma's looking at 13, 14 commitments and is right where they need to be.
Yeah, if they got anyone who's ready to go public, this would be the weekend. I'd say just throw it out there, build that momentum back that you could argue was taken away. They took a hit with Drew Sanders. Show them again, hey, this is why you want to be a Sooner. We're not an afterthought. We're a work in progress, but we are going to be elite once again when it comes to this side of the ball.
All you have to do, really, if your Lincoln is reinforced, like, yes, we're not getting a lot. We didn't have any defensive players drafted, but you know what? Every GM and every head coach shows up at our pro day to watch our offensive guys. They're going to show up to watch our defensive guys if we've got them too. I mean, you can combat it a little bit. It's a lot of extra work. I mean, just look at like that Elias Ricks tweet. Like LSU is definitely
that was weird.
Doing some stuff to try and. I think they're trying to win the region, if you will, which just they're doing what they have to do. I don't begrudge them. I mean,
I'm sure that recruiting process hasn't changed much.
No,
you hand them a bag of money and then they commit. I think that at some point too, they're going to be able to, these coaches in I guess next year at this time, they'll be able to put on tape. This is what we've done now. I think right now they bring these kids in for visits, or whatever. They're probably having to show them practice film.
Yeah, you're right.
Or even Washington State film at the worst. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but when you're able to show them,
you can't show them the West Virginia game, boogie.
Yeah, you can cut it. You can cut some things together, I would imagine.
Well, you can cut the Caleb Kelly and the
and the Curtis Bolton
touchdown.
Maybe have some video of him stroking Mike Stoops in the locker room and the Cotton Bowl.
Well, this weekend, I mean, like I said, they should have 3 offensive linemen. That should not be hard to put a highlight reel for those guys. Like, just look at this, But, I
do think it'll help, though.
One defensive guy coming in this weekend.
Yeah.
Although it's a linebacker, like we say, that's a crucial. And Court Williams embodies what we're talking about. Like,
yes.
Court Williams played safety. I was at the LA camp, had a chance to watch him. We did an interview with him, the whole 9 yards. He was playing safety, and I thought, man, he's really natural in coverage for a safety. I almost was kind of like, he could probably play corner in a pinch, and they're recruiting him at linebacker. I mean, I know people go, oh, well, it means he's not fit. That doesn't mean anything like that. It just means he's a really good athlete that they know that is, I mean, he's a big, broad kid. He's not 6'3" or anything, but he's about 6 foot, 6'1", and he can really run. I mean, it's not hard to see what Alex Grinch is trying to do here defensively.
God, I just feel like there's going to be a lot of people listening to this pod that hate me and Eddie that are just going to be like, more of that pod.
Oh, yeah.
Look, Bob and Josh, that's all we want.
There will be.
Should I just say, like, football?
Talk about hips and, changing.
Oh, I'm going to need some
changing direction and
some soft music playing before I start talking about hips. I mean, if I'm really going to get into it, I gotta get comfortable.
We do have an official announcement on the date of the 5-star challenge for Rivals.
We do indeed. June 25th, Atlanta, America. Be there.
Bob,
only if you're
Bob
invited.
will be changing
I
diapers.
was going to say, but don't, because it's private.
Yeah, you won't be able to come in. But
yeah. If you want, you could stand outside the Mercedes-Benz and you'll probably get a picture of, Eddie, Carey, and I. I mean, just, if you want to come up, I'm sure we'd take a picture with you.
I'd charge them. I'd probably make them pay me.
But,
And if you want to do that, I mean, I don't know why you'd want to do it. It's going to be hot. It's going to be disgusting.
Oh, God.
In Atlanta.
Hey, think how much better it is, though, than the years we were outside in Atlanta.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
That was the first year. I almost died that year.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
I've never been more scared that I was going to have to run the ship at Sooner Scoop than that particular day. I was like,
I decided that year I was going to be Martin Scorsese, so I was out there with a full-size tripod lugging that shit around, using DSLRs, getting, movie quality video. It was ridiculous.
And who did we do it for?
I drove all the way to Atlanta just so I could take all that shit with me.
And we did it for DJ Ward and Stan Von Taylor.
LJ Moore.
Oh, and Greg Bryant.
I got some really nice LJ Moore defending off the line of scrimmage video.
The audio that we really missed that week is me and Eddie walking away from that famous Atari Bird and LJ Moore interview. I don't think I said more than 5 words, but Eddie is just wearing them out.
Do you remember?
I was so blown away that they were so
clueless
about where they were in life. Just like, Jesus.
Eddie, I was trying to do the interview, and like I said it, and how, and we've all done interviews, and you hear something come out of somebody's mouth, and you're like, this is going to go bad. Like, I don't even know where we're going to go from here, but I know it's not going to matter because that quote, the record just stopped.
Were you standing over there, Josh, during one-on-one drills when that dude basically Russian slap fought right into DJ Ward's face.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the most brutal things I've ever seen.
Wait, what?
They were doing one-on-one drills, offensive line versus defensive line. And so DJ Ward got down in his stance, and he started to rush. And, usually guys just punch. This guy just literally, it was like a Russian. Have you seen those YouTube videos like the Russian slap fights where they end up knocking people out? They hit each other so hard.
Just like an open hand slap.
Dude like open hand roundhouse DJ Ward right in the face. And DJ didn't back down. Like, he just kept going. He actually, the guy felt so bad he just stood there, and DJ just ran around him and hit the dummy and won the rep.
DJ didn't have an awful day that day. He was okay.
Well, you know who had the best camp that never amounted to anything? The very first Atlanta camp.
I'm trying to think back.
Josh, you know.
OJ Howard was awesome.
No. This is somebody that went to OU.
Oh, Stan Von.
Stan Von.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was awesome. They had him play receiver the whole time.
I still think Stan Von could have played wide receiver.
I know. He should
I don't know why they never did.
Mike Stoops probably wouldn't let him switch. I don't know.
You, Mike Stoops.
There we go. There we go.
I'm trying to play to the board, Josh. I'm trying to be with your people more.
I mean, you just threw the softball up for Eddie, and he crushed it.
By the way, we have a public service announcement that needs to be made. I haven't done this in a while. I went over and looked at ratings and reviews on iTunes. I think we might need a little help from some of the recent.
Are we taking a hit?
We're taking some hits. Like we haven't told people to go look, so it's like. I don't like if you don't tell people, hey, go rate and review. Like you just get the miserable motherfuckers that just live on the internet, just want to bitch. But like if you go and look, like you can look at what else these people have rated. Here we go. Here's one from Slarv, 1 star, titled "Needs a New Host." Thanks, dickhead. Usually good content, but the host is unable to focus the conversation. That's my problem. He's very amateurish and oblivious to his lack of humor. He also appears to know the least about football as well. That's from Slarv, who I also...
Maybe Slarv can cover that on his podcast and radio show.
The guy that Just the Facts for you, Carey, that guy, it's the perfect review for us. He just should have given us 5 stars. That's where he went wrong. I've got no problem with that review.
You nailed it.
He's also reviewing Minecraft. He gave it 4 stars.
Okay, let's just move on.
Send him back to the nerdery.
He's mad at something I don't know. He gave
hate to see his Pornhub
1
search
star.
history.
Again, where is any content relative to food, tech, and local? I tried to give it time and came back to much of the same empty promises. Time to delete and find another source. See, this guy's just going after everybody.
Wait, okay. I was like, he thought we were going to talk about food.
No,
tech
this
and
is that
local.
Slarv guy. I'm looking at his other.
Okay. So the guy was somebody goes, I unsubscribed due to the profanity and extremely crude comments. Their actual OU sports content was pretty good, but not worth having listened to the profanity and crudeness. That's fair.
See,
that's all fair.
We get a lot of this, like, people are mad at us because we say bad words. Like, we've never tried to hide that. We actually bleep the F-bomb. Like, I'm trying to come to a common ground with you. Like, we all have radio jobs for the most part, or are radio guests on a constant basis. So we have to live that life where, we're buttoned up and, we're good folks and all this. We do this podcast to have fun. Like, we do enough talking every day and every week. We wouldn't do this if we couldn't just come on and be ourselves.
I talk no different here than I would out at the bar with you. Or seeing you every day.
Yeah.
That is one of my biggest complaints is people think Eddie's putting on a front.
No.
This is who he is.
This is pretty much me. But if you're getting offended, I still say, if you're getting offended by cussing in the year 2019, you live in a massive, massive bubble.
Now, I will say, the only thing I will say I think is different about Eddie's much nicer than you think he is. Like, you think he's this mean dude. He's not a mean dude.
This is the best thing I can say about Eddie, about how real he is. I'm shocked that he still has a job in radio.
That's fair. That's fair. I
like
really...
not that you're not good. I'm shocked that you haven't said something that's gotten you fired.
Agreed. I thought FCC was going to be a real problem in your world.
There's still time. Still got time. For the most part, everything's been going really well. It's like I have nothing to. Oh, you runs it off at 9-4. We'll see if I still have a job next year.
Here's one from I can't even say this name. It's worse than the Arakaki guy's name. I'm a WVU fan, but I love listening to you guys. Please, Eddie, never change. There you go.
I think
he gave us
the
5
people
stars.
of Morgantown get me.
That's kind of troubling, yeah.
That is kind of that's your target audience, Eddie.
It really is.
And all you have to do is go on Instagram to know how bizarre Morgantown is.
It's a strange town. I'm disappointed we're not going back next year.
Just know that Barstool loves featuring West Virginia. Probably more than any other school.
Yeah, they have their Rough and Rowdy and all that kind of stuff over there. In the hills, in the backwoods.
The days when sororities and fraternities check in, that's always interesting, the signs that they put up.
Yeah, those are pretty
Eddie,
good.
Do you know anybody that might go by Feffy?
No.
Not sure who this Eddie is, but he sounds hot. Diamond Dave is high. Call me.
Feffy.
Interesting.
I smell a
Yeah,
weed.
for the most part, we've always gotten good reviews. I mean, we have now 400 5-star reviews with only 9 1-star reviews. But I'm telling you, unless you guys go and just give us a shout out or something on the page, or I mean, I don't care about 3 stars. If you want to complain about me or Eddie or Bob or Josh, feel free. I mean, we're big boys, we can handle it. But don't let the 1-star, cuss haters take over our reviews. That's my only request.
Because then you won't get your profanity. You let them win.
Yes.
No, I'm pretty sure that they will. It's just going to be about those f***ing losers.
Yeah, we used to talk about this in the pod all the time back in the day. I love a good just tear us down, review. I think that's amazing. But then hit us with 5 stars because you're not reviewing something, trying to talk about all the stuff that we do and stuff like that because you don't like it. You like it, but you can make fun of the shit we do. That's all good. I think that's all fair play.
I mean, other than your yell talking when we first started the podcast, you really haven't got that much shit on anything. Josh, you're beloved by everyone.
I'm easy to like.
You and Bob both. Mm-hmm. Eddie and I seem to take the majority of the shit.
They hate us because they ain't us.
But I think we equally have fans as much as we do haters. Eddie's probably Eddie's probably more fans than haters. I'm probably about 50-50.
I'd be willing to bet that
Your haters are just more vocal.
Yes, and your fans are probably more loyal to you than Bob and I's are. Like Bob and I's, we don't rock the boat too much. You guys they like you because you say strong things, that sort of deal. So, which is, and again,
we're degenerates.
It's amazing what people choose to remember. I've said a lot of the same shit about old people that Eddie has, and at times probably taken it farther.
Yeah,
and
true.
Eddie is evil for it, and I'm just forgotten for it.
Because you can hear the hate in Eddie's heart. You're kind of monotone,
Yes. Yes. Eddie's a much better rant than it's why Eddie is a radio guy and I'm here. This is my home base.
But now you're a totally different man because, you have a sultry voice now.
I'm not going to lie. Gotten a few emails liking the sounds of Josh.
Someone's sliding in the DMs now. Huh?
Turned into Peyton Manning all of a sudden.
I want everybody, all the ladies out there, and, the fellas, nothing wrong with that. Your choice. But happily married, and I have to forward all those to Tiffany. She will see them. She's going to yell at you. Just a heads up.
Man, I wonder how crazy your wife really is.
Dude, she's so not, but it's such a great narrative to make her a crazy
This is
person.
the narrative that you brought
I mean,
here.
she pulled your children out of your house when I came over. I mean, she ran.
She went to Easter Sunday lunch. Bob is.
She's always been
even
nice to
Eddie
me.
gets it.
She's always been nice to me in person, but now I really know that she can't stand me.
Her true colors
Yeah.
are shown.
The only one she's ever met is Bob.
It's a good thing Eddie didn't come with me. My God, she would have moved.
Just go back on Thanksgiving or Christmas next year.
She would have put up for sale signs out in the front yard.
No, okay. She likes everybody, and she only knows Bob because she's listened to the pod enough times, that sort of thing. I won't lie, though. Eddie, she loves Eddie. She loves Eddie.
Of course.
So, because we had that dinner in San Antonio that year, and I think Eddie just made her laugh, and, she's liked him ever since. So.
What's that place called?
I don't know. I can't remember. We usually go over there when we're in town, and it's really freaking good.
I don't think I was. I wasn't at that dinner.
Yeah, you were.
Was I?
You were.
Yeah.
You were. It was all four of us.
It was the Mexican place?
Yeah, they've got those killer margaritas that are outstanding.
Like La Fogata or something
Yeah,
like that?
Yeah,
I think that was
I think that's right. It's way out on the west side of town.
And the locals
I think there's a couple, but that's...
There.
Is that right? I thought it was the cool place. I don't remember.
I think it's the
good.
touristy past prime place.
Would make sense because it's huge.
All right. Any other order of business you guys want to get to before we get out of here? Bob is shaking his head. He wants to go home and make sure his wife is not having a baby. Everything good?
That's a good thing to check on.
Everything good? Like no panic with the tornado, possibilities yesterday.
No, I mean if that one that was around Lindsay had headed
that one scared
north,
the crap out of me.
If it went due north, we would have been in for it. But it kept going
it
east.
literally said Lake Thunderbird, and I was like, oh, Bob's screwed.
But it kept going east and
it just fell apart,
and then fell apart. It was like, all right.
It is not. If you're listening to this from outside
it's
Oklahoma, and you've lived in Oklahoma, this is that time of year when you stick your head out the door and you go, oh shit, I can just feel tornadoes.
It's funny that you say that. Talking to a couple buddies yesterday about that, it's like you just know, like you can walk outside if you've lived in Oklahoma long enough. You can walk outside and be like, yeah,
you know whether there's
going to
be tornado warnings.
It's going to be a storm day.
And the bad thing yesterday was
and I thrive on storm days.
It was all coming through like at 5 o'clock when everybody was going home. So, all right, that's going to do us. Bob's got to get out of here to do a radio hit, I think. Eddie, appreciate it as always. I do not do business in that chair, just so you know.
Well, you clean it up nicely if you do. And it's farther away from the computer, which...
I was just trying to hurt you last week, really.
Can't hurt me. I guess at some point over the summer, we will have to talk about Kyler Murray and if we actually think he's going to be a good pro quarterback.
All in.
You're all in? Do you think that they could... And I don't want to extend this because we were trying to wrap it up, but I think that Arizona could be extremely good offensively and still go 3-13.
Oh, yeah. They can.
I think there's a chance. If you made me bet from here forward who was the better player between he and Baker, I'd really have an internal argument about that. I think Baker's going to be a Pro Bowler.
They could be the L.A. Rams on offense, and God, who is a terrible defense in the NFL? The Jets.
They need to get it rolling on offense and prove that they've got that what Kingsbury's going to do is going to work, and then go get like Wade Phillips. Exactly what you're talking about, Eddie or Carey. Go get that guy that you can just put on defense. Wade, we're not going to mess with you. You run what you want to run. We know you can fix it, and then let's go compete for a Super Bowl.
I think really important for
maybe Mike Zimmer gets fired after this year, and then
he might.
Him.
Who did they hire as their defense coordinator? I was trying to look it up real quick, but
I don't know.
I have no idea. It's kind of interesting that they need to go out and get a backup quarterback.
Oh yeah,
with like a veteran backup quarterback that
somebody can help him.
But we talked about this morning was the fact that who do you go get, because I think it's going to have to be a pretty. Kyler Murray's not the easiest person, I'm sure, to work with.
What's Sam doing?
I don't know.
Can you imagine if they re-signed Sam Bradford?
Landry Jones?
Oh, not Landry, no.
What about they need a veteran quarterback, though. I mean, a guy that's basically going to go there with the intention of knowing he's never going to play.
Isn't McCown,
Josh McCown, I don't know if he'd want to...
available? He was almost going to retire or something?
Is he not with the Jets anymore?
I think he was going to retire and maybe go into media.
And he's always been revered as a kick-ass locker room guy.
Well, he did that for Sam Darnold last year.
Yeah. The Vance Joseph is their defensive coordinator.
Oh, that's
the guy
right.
That used to be the Broncos head coach.
That's right, yeah.
He's a good coach. I think he's a good defensive coach.
There's some reason to think he could do that. What did you guys think? God, let's not extend it. I was going to ask.
Go ahead. We got
what did you think about Keim coming out and being like, we didn't draft Kyler Murray to sit the bench? I mean, like, just owning it. Like, damn.
My response to that is, you're not going to start Brett Hundley. So I mean, who else would you start? Have you looked at their quarterback room? It's literally Brett Hundley and two guys that I've never heard of. A kid from Princeton and a kid from like Austin P or something.
Oh, so then they've got the next Jason Garrett and then some other guy.
Yes, basically. I mean, it's not surprising.
No, it's not. But like, did he learn his lesson from the pre-draft stuff, where all the Rosen half-truths and all the stuff that you knew wasn't correct, and he just kept telling everybody all this bullshit? And this time he's like, okay, you know what? We're not even going to try to. Oh, we're going to compete. We'll see what happens. Blah blah blah. No, he's going to be our starting quarterback.
Well,
I think he probably
they played Pete Prisco like a fiddle.
I think they probably saw Dave Gettleman and they're like, we don't want to look like that. We're just going to tell the truth.
Did you see Prisco like live through the draft? Like, he was big mad about Kyler Murray going number one.
Well, did you see his post draft breakdown?
No.
He said Kyler's going to be a bust.
Yeah.
I will be shocked if that's the case. I mean, if he is 6'2", he is Andrew Luck. I mean, like, and I don't mean like he's that same kind of player. I mean that he's viewed that way as a prospect. He is almost infallible. He is going to be a good player. Am I going to lose that much sleep over 4 inches in a league that has clearly become about space and can create passing lanes for him? To me, the only way Kyler fails is the same thing that happened to Sam. If injuries get him and his body can't hold up,
sure,
that's a reasonable concern because he's smaller. I get all that. But you guys know better than me. Kyler's not a small guy. People keep wanting to make him like he's little. No, he's just short.
Well, and the other
he's stout.
The other thing I'd add to that is just the fact that Kyler can probably get away from situations that Sam just, let's be honest, he couldn't.
True.
He wasn't as athletic. He wasn't as fast. And he's gonna have to do shit on his feet because, I mean, that offensive line didn't necessarily get better over the offseason, did they?
Last year,
I was kind of surprised that they didn't focus more on the offensive line.
I wondered if they looked at Cody.
That first pick on the second day.
I bet they gave him I bet they definitely gave him a look. Is that more to do with just they think that Kingsbury thinks that we're gonna get the ball out of his hands, he's not gonna have time to get sacked?
Probably more to do with the fact that our team sucks everywhere, and we need to at least get some defense because we've already taken the offense.
Well, because you know what the narrative is in Arizona right now. Oh, we've just got this offensive guy that doesn't have any idea how to coach. You know, his teams at Tech were terrible on defense. We're going to be terrible on defense. You know, yada, yada, yada. So you take Kyler Murray the year after taking another quarterback. So, okay, we could have addressed another position and kept Josh Rosen. So all he thinks about is offense. Well, you almost have to go defense for that second pick just to shut everybody up.
They take a corner there? Was that who they took?
That was when they took the Byron Murphy kid that I was talking about earlier, this from Saguaro, which is a local kid, so that's cool. But yeah, like I said, I mean, the more I look at Kyler Murray and the stuff he can do, barring something you just can't predict, I just don't see any way he's not a really, really good NFL quarterback.
Small sample size, but I've been going back through every game, and long story short, I'm logging every game for the clip numbers or whatever, but Kyler Murray made some throws last year. Like that couple of those throws that he made against West Virginia, the back shoulder to Marquise Brown.
Marquise.
I think that was on like a third and it was a third and long. There was a third and long that he made against, I think, to Lee Morris in the Bedlam game when they're driving down to the south end. Like I don't think he gets enough credit how well he throws the football.
I don't either.
Or maybe he gets enough credit for arm strength, but doesn't get enough credit for touch.
It's hard to give him credit when he followed up Baker.
Yeah,
like it's true. You're just used to. It's just like you become numb to greatness.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't think OU fans realize how good he was. I mean, I was listening to a pod the other day, and they're talking to Mike Gundy, and he was like, "Man, we didn't think." You know, and Holgerson was involved with it as well, and they're both like, there was no way they were going to replace Baker Mayfield, and they're like, holy shit, this guy's probably better. You know, like that. Like I said, I don't think OU fans even can fathom what they've just seen in the last 4 years. I mean, those guys, that's not going to happen again. I know everybody wants to make Jalen Hurts that dude. Don't do that to yourself. Like what those guys just did is unbelievable.
You can't stop people from doing that, Josh.
We need to find the podcast from May 1st, 2018, because I bet we were saying the same thing about Kyler.
You're right. It's just with Murray. I won't even pretend I wasn't ready to buy. I wasn't with Hurts. Like I've seen enough. Like it's not like with Murray. Like you didn't know there was all this element of we played a couple games at A&M and then we've seen him in the spring game. And other than that, we don't know anything about him as a college player. With Hurts, there is a lot of track record, and Lincoln can fix some things, and that offense can do some amazing things, and all that. But I mean, you're talking about the last 3 years have been some of the best quarterback play college football has literally ever seen.
Yeah,
and he's just going to step in and be there.
I think I put,
and I don't even think it's like a talent thing or a physical thing as much as it's just like when OU needed a play, they put the ball outside of the Rose Bowl, put the ball in the hands of the quarterback and said, "We need you to make this throw." And probably 94% of the time, they made that throw or they made that play with their feet.
I think I said in the round table, like Jalen, all he has to do is complete 65%, which is doable, 60 to 65%, and then throw for 3,500 yards. And he'll be one of the
really
first
nice year.
five
He does that.
quarterbacks drafted next year.
No, I would be very surprised if he's not drafted. I think that.
I think he will be drafted. Mm-hmm. Now, where he gets drafted will certainly be interesting.
I said 5 quarterbacks. I don't even know who's in the draft off the top of my head.
Somebody asked me.
The Herbert kid from Oregon will probably be right up there as far as the number one.
Yeah, him. There's 2 or 3 that are right up there, and I'm going to go blank.
Well,
what is the highest?
Tagovailoa will be eligible.
What is the lowest?
Oh yeah, Tua.
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine if he has just an okay year and then Jalen Hurts gets drafted ahead of him and they both and he declares?
Oh my God! Talk about that story. You're right. That would be
you'd turn that into a short documentary. Send it to every quarterback that's ever played.
They would
or every 8th grader in the country.
They would have a donor pay ESPN to make a 30 for 30 on the spot.
What is the like? If you had to say right now, Jalen Hurts, what would be the highest you think he could go in the draft?
Second round.
If he goes in the second round right now, Lincoln, right? They should give him another $1 million.
That's second round. I'm saying if he has the perfect season for him. That's his ceiling, is a second round.
Yeah.
If he goes in the second round, does that mean he's won the Heisman Trophy?
No.
I'm telling you, I don't care how good he is next year, that he will not win the Heisman. It'll just be some backlash. Fatigue. They'll fight it.
Sure.
I just don't believe they'll let that happen.
No, I 100% would believe that.
I fully expect Tua will win it.
Yeah,
probably.
I mean, the goal for Hurts is just to be in New York. I mean, that's the ceiling.
Yeah,
for him to be in New York.
Send a guy for the 4th straight year to New York for the Heisman Trophy.
He'd be the 4th guy in 4 years. Because Dede was there.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah. Dede with Baker in 2016.
Yeah.
And 17, 18, 19. Well, regardless, I think it's, I was thinking about this on the way, we can wrap this up, but I was thinking about it on the way up here. Was just the fact that, it's a good thing that people are bitching and complaining about the defense right now, because I do think that means that people in a way have kind of reinvested themselves and we're starting to believe into something, even if it wasn't there. And I guess you could say that happens every year for Oklahoma fans or just people that follow Oklahoma football in general. But I don't know, maybe this one's different just because there is that unknown out there about what they're going to do for a defense.
I think what happened was because we talked to Grinch after the spring game on that Tuesday. It's kind of like we talked about the podcast we did for the spring game. Kind of got hijacked by Tiger.
Yeah, we got tigered.
Which
I'm completely okay with.
And so our numbers were a little bit down because it was one of the biggest news stories in sports that weekend, and they didn't really listen to the podcast. I mean, probably all radio stations were at fault because everybody wanted to turn on the radio and hear Tiger reaction. But I don't even know. I totally lost my train of thought where I was going.
You're saying something about that.
But when we interviewed Grinch, it was 3 days after.
Or
4 days after the spring game. So I think people were just like, okay, spring's over.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think they really paid attention to what Alex Grinch said in his final meeting with the media, which was, "I'm not real happy, and we're too up and down, and guys have to get better."
I just think it's one of those
it's
things
not
that,
fixed.
we might say you're a little crazy for being out of place or misguided with your enthusiasm, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing leading into the summer. It's going to be everything's going to be okay.
I think to wrap up the podcast, it can seem like there are two different versions of OU right now. The offensive side and offensive recruiting and defensive side and defensive recruiting. It's not that bad. It's the Drew Sanders thing is eye-opening, and it shows you that there's a perception battle that OU is going through right now. But it is still Oklahoma. It is still a place that's going to bring in, high-level recruits. Now, they're not going to have a top 10 defensive recruiting class, but they're not screwed. But they do need to get out and play better this year. They do need to put some stuff on tape in order for it to get to a national championship level defense.
Absolutely.
Give these kids something to buy into. Even if, they were 94th in the country in defense last year, get to the 50s, 60s. Like, it's not perfect, it's not great, but you can clearly see we're moving in the right direction.
And find some sort of consistency. That to me seems to be what Grinch's biggest problem with that team is they can't duplicate success one day after another. Which was the problem last year.
Maybe you can't build off of that until you actually get into a game and actually feel the confidence of getting a couple stops or getting a couple 3-and-outs. It's like, I can't remember how many times last year they were so close. I mean, everybody knows the story, but like how many 3rd and 15s did that team give up last year?
Ugh.
On plays that it seemed like they were a 1/10 of a second away from either getting to the quarterback or getting a hand on the ball once it got to the receiver.
They couldn't
think of the first half of that first Texas game.
Sure.
They couldn't tackle a guy in Little Jordan Humphrey that didn't even get drafted.
Absolutely.
They made Little Jordan Humphrey look like a first-round pick.
Well, they did the same for Hakeem Butler. It's just that people were smart enough not to draft him in the first round.
Yeah. You talk to some people, they think Hakeem Butler is going to be an absolute monster.
The problem, the thing about Hakeem Butler is, yes, he killed OU, but so did Tylan Wallace, or whatever his name is. Mm-hmm. So did Little Jordan Humphrey. So did David Seals.
Antoine Wesley.
So did everyone killed Oklahoma. Like, at least Hakeem Butler, replicated that success later on in his career.
Sure.
Against other teams besides OU. So, I'll be interested to see what Will Grier does, too, if he ever plays.
It's kind of a weird pick.
It's kind of we don't know if Cam Newton's ever going to be the same again pick.
Yeah. There's some people that would probably argue that maybe just give Will Grier a shot.
All right, well, that's going to do it. We'll end it on the Will Grier note. Strange. I brought it up, though. So, Josh, thank you. Thank you to Eddie. Bob is long gone, as he had to do some radio stuff. So, thanks for listening. Go subscribe, Soonerscoop.com. Also, don't forget, subscribe, like, rate, review. Help us from all the, I don't know, what do we want to term these people? The one-stars? They're
worse than pores.
Scarlet Letter gang.
Oh, no, we'll table that. I'll come up with something. All
right, well, go rate and review us and tell us your thoughts, even if you think we cuss too much. But anyway, so thanks for listening. We'll see you guys back again next week right here on the Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.